Hey everybody, welcome to AnyScale Modelling Painting. In today's video I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial on a figure from Oathsworn Miniatures, and this is from their Burrows Badgers range of miniatures, which have probably got over 100 now, I'd have thought. I don't know the exact numbers. And they've also got a range of sort of humans as well called Sensible Shoes. The moulds are great, and the castings and stuff. This is a white metal, I've primed grey, and as you can see the detail is really good. But you probably, if you haven't seen them, they're probably at sort of all the UK conventions, model shows are always there, and they've got a great range painted, so you can see, and a rule system that Osprey Games have sort of collaborated with. But yeah, great little miniatures, and I'll put all the links and stuff in the description below. But I'll get cracking now, and I'll show you the steps to do it. So first colour you need is leather brown from Army Painter, and this is to of course paint the fur. You could obviously opt for a sort of grey squirrel or more of a red squirrel, but obviously the choice is yours. And obviously this colour, just apply it to all the painted, the fur parts. You haven't got to be too careful at this point, because obviously you're going to be painting over the rest, but I try and keep it in the lines, you know, just to make it easy for myself. But that's basically that step. So once that's completed, it's ready to move on to the next step, and that'll be his clothing. So, time to move on to the clothing, and for this I've gone quite flamboyant. So the backstory, I suppose, he's quite a bit of a cocksure knight, so I'm going to go like a real bright lime green, and that's from VALLEJO game colour, and that's ESCORPENA green. It looks pretty bright on camera, it isn't as bright, but basically just apply that to his sort of his headdress with all the fur tufts and his cape. Again, I've tried this on different, I've done other squirrels and I've used purple capes, reds and blues and stuff, so you know, there isn't like a strict pattern to colours with Burrows and Badgers, but obviously if you're going to stick to a theme, pick sort of like royal colours like your blues, greens, reds and stuff, if you want to match them into the war bands, but obviously the choice is yours. I went with this one, bit of a risk to start with, but it did pay off towards the end. But yeah, just paint the cape and all the feathers on the top, and then move on to the next step. So the final colour on sort of like the big areas to paint, I went with gunmetal from Army Painter, and for that I'm obviously going to apply that to all his armour, across his tail, and his axe and stuff. And that's basically your sort of your three main colours. So you've got your fur, your clothing, and your armour, and then obviously we'll move on to washes and highlights after. But at this point, try and be careful with the metallic paints, because obviously if you do get it on sort of greens and browns, it can be a pain to cover, because it has got a bit of a different finish. But once you get all the armour painted, we're going to stick some washes on it, and we'll do them in the next steps. So first wash out of the three, and this is going to be for the clothing. Now I do have a game ink from VALLEJO, a green one, but it was quite bright, so I've opted for the military shader from Army Painter, and this will darken down the colour quite a bit, and it'll fill in them recesses quite nicely. Obviously this colour, just apply it to the clothing and the feathers at the top, and it gets in all them recesses. This is straight out the bottle. I normally do stick some mixing medium with them to thin them down, but for the purposes of this tutorial I didn't mix any of the washes down, I just straight out the bottle and applied them to that. So just, yeah, apply it all over the clothing, and then we'll move on to the next wash in the next step. So second wash, this is the strong tone from Army Painter, and I'm going to be applying this to all the fur areas, so his tail, body, face, etc. Again, like I said before, I didn't wash any of these down. These are straight out the bottle. just basically just slap it on and get in all them recesses. And you'll notice if you buy any of these miniatures, or if you've painted any before, the recesses and the details are great. So a wash totally transforms the models without even highlights. So yeah, just do that to all the fur areas, and then we'll move on to the wash, which will be for the armour. So as you can see, just by 2 washes over the base coat, the detail's really starting to stand out. You know, it totally transforms the miniatures. The final wash is going to be the darkest that I could get from Army Painter, which is their dark tone, because I really want to sort of dirty that armour up and get it quite just you know, like a black metal armour. Obviously you'll get some highlights after. So yeah, just slap it over. I think I put 2 coats on it because I really wanted the sort of distinction between the dark armour and all the chinks on it. So just, you know, go quite heavy on this, but obviously be careful not to get onto the fur or the green stuff, because it'll obviously darken that one down. But once that's applied, we're going to go back to the original colours and do a few highlights. So this is the first step of highlights, and normally when I paint a miniature, because you've applied washes over your base coat, it's obviously darker than the original coat. So I go back now through the paints I originally used. So for this is leather brown, and I just pick out some high points with leather brown, sort of down the staff there on the wood, and a few little bits over the fur, but I wouldn't worry too much with the fur because we're going to do a bit of dry brushing over that later. So yeah, once you've done all the sort of highlights with your base colour, it's ready to move on to the next step. So next colour, get your ESCORPENA green back out, and this time just pick out sort of I'd say 70% of the high points of the cape, just over all the high edges there, and sort of try and blend it in so get sort of a couple of shades of green going, and do that throughout the whole of the cape and the fur at the top. Like I say, you can already notice a difference between the original colour with the wash over the top and how much brighter this one is. So just do that, and then we'll move on to the next step. So next colour, get gunmetal back out, and this time because it's quite a sort of a thick paint, you can notice it quite a lot. I did take most of it off with the tissue, and this is more of a dry brush than a highlight, just to sort of really scruff that armour up, and obviously apply that to all the areas. Like in the previous step when you applied the gunmetal to start with, just be careful not to get it on other parts of the model because it can be a pain to sort of get rid of and rectify. But go over the entire armour, and then we'll move on to the finer highlights in the next step. So for the next step is to highlight the green cape, and for that I took the previous colour, which was a Squirrel green, mixed in with a bit of white, sort of 70-30 to the green, just to sort of really lighten that colour up. And then as you can see, just apply it to maybe the top sort of 20% of the high peaks. I did add a little bit of water as well, just to improve the flow across them and blend it in a little bit better. But as you can see, just by adding sort of the simple highlights, your figure really starts coming to life, and really gives it that bit more detail. But yeah, apply it to all the green areas, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. So it's time to start highlighting the armour, and for that I used plate mail metal from Army Painter, and this is the one, just the one shade lighter from gunmetal. following the same principles as before, just pick out the high points, like on the edges of the plates and all the sort of the pointy and jaggedy bits of the armour, and it just adds like another depth to your miniature. And you know, as you can see by the video, it's really starting to come to life. You know, just from a few simple steps. So yeah, basically go over the entire model again with the metallics. Just be careful, because I've done many models where I've had to go back and try and recover and follow the steps backwards. So just take your time, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, it's the penultimate colour now, and that is Monster Brown from Army Painter, which is again, like the previous step, about one shade lighter than the original colour of Leather Brown. This is to be added obviously on the fur areas in a few different steps. The first step I did was to take the most of it off on a bit of tissue and sort of dry brush a little bit over the sort of the underside of the tail and across his feet. And then with a smaller brush, I did the sort of cheek areas, around the mouth and the eyebrows and the tops of the ears. Anywhere really where a light source would be hitting the top of the face, just to add a bit more detail. The colour after that will be Banshee Brown, but we'll show that in the next step. So the final colour then is Banshee Brown, and this is again just to add a few more highlights to the areas you did before with Monster Brown, but obviously just go over sort of a smaller percentage of the areas, so under the tail again, and across the cheek, eyebrows and such. And that's pretty much the miniature finished. As you notice, I have put a sort of some with white teeth in as well. And again, I won't show you the step, but I did black eyes, and I put a bit of gloss varnish over the top, which you'll see in the later steps. But that's pretty much it done. So I hope you know, some of these steps help you or give you a bit of inspiration on colours and stuff. But I'll let you watch the rest of the video, and I'll talk to you again later. So that's the end of the tutorial, and obviously, as from the previous steps, I've gone ahead and based it and put a black base across the bottom. It's a great little miniature to paint. I mean, the detail is really good, so you know, please do check them out, and I'll put the links and the description and stuff, so go check them out. If you haven't played the game, give it a go. If you're not really interested in games but you do like to paint, these are some of the best miniatures I've painted. And the sort of variation and choice you've got is endless, so just please go and have a look at them. You won't be disappointed, and they're quite reasonable as well. They range from sort of £3 for a small one, all the way up to the Badger, which I think is £12-ish, you know, between £10 and £12, I think. But it's massive. It's like 50mm tall, massive club. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit the like button. If you've got any questions, comments or anything you want me to cover, put it in the description below, and I'll do my best and then we'll get back to you. And if you like the channel, subscribe. Also, you can support my Patreon page for as little as $1 a month, and in you doing so will just help me sort of create more content for you, and will help the channel grow. But as always, I hope you like the video, and I'll see you again next time.